Welcome to a new episode of our ESFORIN Change Makers podcast. And I'm very happy to welcome Patrik Möller, CEO and co-founder of CorPower Ocean. Hello, Patrik.
Hello, Theodora. Very nice inviting me.
CorPower Ocean is a turnkey supplier of wave energy systems, enabling customers to generate clean electricity from ocean waves. And you now just closed a 32 million Series B1 led by Nordic Ninja in October. Wow, congratulations, first of all, to this exceptional success.
Thanks a lot. Quite a bit of work going into that, but we're very happy to take the next step with wave energy now.
So let's start with my first question to you. How did you find your way to utilize energy from waves? Did the ocean or renewables always fascinate you?
Well, actually, I have had a background as founder and I guess entrepreneur building deep tech companies in my past. So I was previously running a company in semiconductor manufacturing where I was the inventor at the time. And then after some 10, 11 years in that, I was looking to do something new, and I wasn't aware of all the different opportunities and challenges in wave energy at the time. So I was actually matchmaked with the inventor behind our technology, which was called Stig Lundbeck, who was a medical doctor. And he had his inspiration by the pumping principles of the human heart. But when we started CorPower, it was actually a matchmaking between me as, if you say, systems engineer / entrepreneur and him as an inventor, and we teamed up, and then with the help of InnoEnergy got started on the journey of CorPower.
So let's talk a little about CorPower, because I think it's a very change-making and fascinating startup. So CorPower has been a pioneer in wave energy technology and helps to harness clean energy from the ocean. What is the general company's vision, and how does your technology actually work? Like a heartbeat then?
There is certainly a heartbeat to it, but yeah, our vision is then to power the planet with clean electricity from ocean waves. We have gotten reasonably far on that. We're probably one of the most ambitious efforts in the world today to make wave energy a reliable and competitive energy source. And how it's working, well, you can say also historically, a lot of people have tried. And I think when you speak about inspiration, and so everybody who's been standing in front of an ocean watching how the waves just keep coming in all the time, I think have felt this, had a question, what if we could just find a way to harvest that very constant and quite complementary energy source into something commercially viable? And that is what we've been working on for the last 12 years. So we've added technology that now makes wave energy survive the biggest storms and that produce a large amount of power compared to the size and the cost of the equipment. And these have historically been the two main challenges that have held back commercial adoption of wave energy.
You just mentioned storms. I think this is very interesting. How does it exactly work? In which waters and what water depth can your your power plant in the ocean work? And especially, how does the technology deal with storms? I imagine there are also super high waves then that can happen.
Absolutely. So our technology, it uses a wave energy converter. In our case, it's called a point absorber. It's the category of wave energy converters that we're working with. And that has a composite hull, a buoy on the surface, which is floating and is oscillating up and down and side by side. And we are then converting that motion into linear motion. And then we have a gearbox system that converts that into rotation, and then generators that turn that into electricity, and power electronics that convert it into grid compliant electricity output. And our product is co-pack clusters of tens to hundreds of these wave energy converters grouped in then clusters that can be laid out side by side to form large utility scale wave farms. Yeah, you mentioned storms as well. You wanted me to say something about that. That has and still is one of the most challenging environment to be in. I mean, the oceans, it's very fierce when you have the big fall and winter storms coming in. So in Portugal now, we have had the experience of last winter. We've seen 4 or 5 major storm events, and we had our C4 wave energy converter riding waves up to 18.5 meters here in the last big storm season. And we turned out that we could survive every one of them. One of the technologies we've been adding to wave energy, it's a way that these buoys become transparent. You can say that they don't react to the energy coming in. When you get long, powerful waves, our wave energy converter is put at a natural frequency, meaning that it's much faster than the waves coming in, and in that sense doesn't react to the ocean waves. It's a bit like tuning your radio onto the wrong frequency when there is no transmission from a radio station. Mm-hmm. The ocean is transmitting its energy on a certain frequency, and when our device is on the wrong frequency, we don't get reception and we don't excite the device, and that's how we can survive. So it's a bit like the radio analogy, and it was actually Stig's inspiration from the human heart that allows us to have a natural system which is very fast and then naturally protected from storm waves.
Wow, interesting. So you just mentioned, I just had to think about these huge waves in Portugal. I think they're in Nazaré, somewhere close to Lisbon. And I think that's important to mention to our listeners. Your project is, your first buoys are placed in near Lisbon, right?
A little bit more north. We're in the Portuguese coast. We are closest, we're between Porto and a town called Viana do Castelo, just on the Spanish border. Mm-hmm. So we're in the very northern part of Portugal, but not so far from Nazaré, as you mentioned. Nazaré has this particular feature of like a canyon on the seabed, which is then collecting these big waves into one concentrated point. So you can get up to like 30-meter individual waves in some of the cases in Nazaré. We've had a bit, around 20 as the biggest.
Wow. And so when your energy is produced or the electricity generated, how do you transmit then exactly that energy to the mainland? So is there a cable, or you mentioned frequencies, but are very important, but what else to really actually get the power to the end consumer?
Exactly. So our product, as I said, is these core-pack clusters, which then can be 10 to 30 megawatt of power per cluster. And we're then exporting the power from each individual device through a small cable, which is then routed into something we call a collection hub, which is a can, you can say, floating in the ocean, where we have some transformers and switchgear for protection. And from that point on, we then connect every core pack to an offshore electrical infrastructure and export cable. So very similar to offshore wind. And actually, we've made these core packs so they are plug and play compatible with the standard electrical infrastructure of an offshore wind farm. So some of our customers are actually looking to add these core packs together with wind turbines in the ocean and make use of the advantage of having complementary power profile between the two sources, and then export these combined profiles into the same cable.
Plug and play is a very handy buzzword, because what is the advantage of your CorPower systems over other renewable technologies? Because it sounds really simple to me, although it's probably also very technology driven.
It's reasonably deep tech. We're covering a lot of scientific areas today in the team. And of course, this is why also wave energy has taken some longer to commercialize compared to wind and solar, because it has been scientifically and technically more demanding to come up with solutions that address every single challenge until the level where it's now been proven in a commercial scale kit to work. But the advantage, why do you want to add wave energy at all? I believe that, the challenge for the world to get to net zero, or to get all the way to the Paris goals, it's to make sure that we have clean electricity available at all times. Also ESFORIN is working with demand response applications, which is going against the same thing. The challenge with the lowest cost renewables, being solar and wind today, has made amazing developments in the cost trajectory. But of course, it's only producing at a certain amount of the hours in a year when it's windy and when it's sunny. And then you have the challenge to take the world to a fully renewable energy system and entirely leave fossil sources behind us. We need something that can go with a mix that becomes very close to 24/7, meaning every hour where there's demand for clean electricity, there's actually a supply of it. And that's the purpose with adding wave energy. So on the big oceans, such as the Atlantic or the Pacific, where you have then swell coming in from the big oceans. That is waves that have been generated over a historical process of several days in the past. And when the winds then blow over the big oceans, there is like a natural smoothing effect happening. You can say that the oceans work as one huge battery storage or energy storage unit for us. So when you pick up that power profile on the coastland or the coastline, it's very close to a firmed electricity profile. It's much more consistent compared to wind and solar, and is also not correlated with the wind of the day or the sun of the day. So when you add it to the mix, it takes you very close to 24/7.
Absolutely. So CorPower persuaded me in its vision and technology from the beginning. So my urgent question is, when do you reckon can we see more of ocean power plants in the open sea? So how about you mentioned the readiness to commercialize the technology. So what do you think?
Yeah, where are we at? Yeah, so earlier this year, we announced our big breakthrough, and having proven this storm survivability and having proven the power production with our first commercial scale machine, the C4. So what we're working on now is that we are industrializing the product and also the manufacturing technologies to really be ready to scale this to thousands of units per year type of volumes in the coming 5 years, we can say. And we're also working to make wave energy fully bankable. So the financing round that we now closed has the purpose of bringing our technology to bankability, which then entails getting it type certified by DNV, which is this Norwegian certification body, and to take one or two of our customer projects, wave farms developed by our customers, utilities and energy companies around the world, to FID, meaning the final investment decision, where we actually start construction. So the timeline that we're targeting is that we in 2027 should see the first commercial projects reaching final investment decision, and we then start the construction of adding in wave devices in commercial farms. The very first one is on a reasonable small scale, is 5 to 10 megawatts, so 14 to 28 machines per farm. And then all of them are scalable into second phases, where we're looking at some 100 machines in the second phase, and then it could quite easily become thousands of machines, so hundreds and hundreds of megawatts on the sites that we're working with. But the first phase, to answer your question, should be able to be in the water by 29 or so if we get to FID, assuming they're 2027.
And of course, your Series B1 funding will help accelerate your milestones.
Exactly. So we are now looking to further increase our team size and capabilities. We're today 85 people, and we're looking to almost double that over the next 3 years. And we're looking to build even more production capabilities. We have our own mobile production cell for these big composite hulls that we're doing in Portugal. And we are working on really scaling up our supply chain and the assembly lines to be able to make the drivetrains and the equipment on the inside on a much larger scale.
Let's drive a little more towards the digital energy future. And this, I think, is also very interesting regarding your company. So the digital transformation, as we all know, is reshaping the energy world. And you, as a founder, also mentioned that you have a strong background in deep tech technology and companies. So how do you incorporate digital tools or deep tech to optimize the energy production or distribution in your company CorPower?
We're trying to make use of all the best available tools there, of course, as most people do. But specifically for us, that means that we have a quite huge digital twin. So our machinery, all the detailed representations of that is in a large numerical model, which we then use to try all kinds of possible improvements on the system and really tuning all the algorithms and all the features of it. So we're using quite advanced AI and math functions in these machines. And, before we decide on one design direction versus the other one, we might have been running millions of combinations of different ways that a machine like this could have been built in a numerical model before we then inform what should we actually do a prototype out of. And we've been doing now 4 generations of prototypes since we started in 2012. We're now in our 5th generation, but between each generation there's been millions of combinations and options evaluated in numerical tools. So we have a whole group, getting close to 10 people, who only do that kind of numerical modeling. And it's also quite nice with the developments in AI and different intelligent methods being coming to the market. We're trying to not only control our device like 100 times per second or what it should be doing to minimize loads while maximizing the power output, we're also trying to see, let's say, 15 seconds into the future, what's going to be happening with the ocean surface. And based on that understanding of the future, trying to optimize the control and running of these devices based on quite advanced prediction algorithms, AI-like functions, seeing a little bit into the future. So that's work we're doing.
The know-how and the technology you just described gives me actually a hint why wave power was not or has not been used that much so far. Just to zoom out a little from the company itself, to talk a bit more about wave power in general and its future. As beforehand of the interview, when I prepared some ideas or questions, I imagined, the Earth's surface consists of 70% of water. And hydropower, for me, in that sense, seems to be the most straightforward source of energy. Why did we not utilize wave energy in the past? So you mentioned some things, deep tech insights and so on, that help to utilize it, but are there more, perhaps a straightforward arguments why nobody dared to do such a project?
I would say a lot of people have been inspired by that resource. It's very clear when you stand there looking at it, as we talked about before, that should be utilized in somehow. But it's been really hard technically. A lot of smart people in different groups have tried since, over the last 100 years, but actively since the 1970s. There were quite serious programs in the UK, in Norway, in different places, are really trying to bring wave energy to development then. But in all cases, I think it's been that combination of making technology that both survive the biggest storms, then at the same time getting the equipment to be small enough compared to its power output so that the cost of the electricity it could produce is competitive enough. And that has been the challenge. There's been, unfortunately, in wave energy, a lot of failures in storms. A lot of devices historically have not held up to those fierce storms coming in when it's the most extreme. And also, many devices have become quite large and heavy compared to the amount that they could produce. Like we're now having a 9-meter diameter machine, about today 130 tons of materials per equipment for a 300 kilowatt absorber. Historical wave machines quite often have been in the sizes of 20 to a few hundred meters big and thousands of tons of materials for that same power rating. So, if you look at how much energy you can generate compared to the amount of equipment that you need to install in the ocean, it's typically a factor 5 or more in improvement that the kind of innovations that we've brought over the last decade have now been able to bring it. So there's a huge difference to wave energy in new generation that can produce a large amount of energy actually compared to the size and the cost of the equipment and the way that we can survive the storms.
How big of an impact do you see the wave energy have in the broader renewable energy landscape over the next decade? You already mentioned a few, how much energy you can produce, and that you are more versatile or you have smaller power plants, are more flexible in a sense, that you don't have these huge assets, and that you can survive storms. And with your technology-driven approach, you can also adapt to the frequency of the waves. And what do you see in comparison to the wave energy in the next decade? But also, what milestones do you expect regarding the technology in the near future? You also mentioned your company already, but perhaps you can just give a broader future insight.
Absolutely. Let's try that. And I think in order to have a big impact, of course, scalability is a big thing as well. And we've taken on this quite modular approach, as you're saying. Each individual wave energy converter are reasonably small, and then we put them in these high density clusters. So we make thousands and thousands in the future of the same machine. And it's important then in order to get to real scalability and roll this out on a big global scale, we believe that modularity, where you make the same Lego piece, if you call it, standardized, and everything is the same, and then you make the same thing over and over and over again. Historically, that has shown to give the highest cost reduction curve, so the best cost reduction, and get the highest learning rate. So if you look at battery cells in battery manufacturing, or PV cells, it's two of the extremes. It's quite small unit sizes. The Lego piece is very small, and then in those cases, you make millions of them. In kind of the opposite case, maybe is nuclear, which is the most extreme of one giant thing that you only make one every 30 years or so, and the cycles of learning you get out of that is quite limited. We are also, compared to wind turbines, quite small units. We have many more units per megawatt, something for a 10 megawatt, like 25 units or so. And that gives us a unit size which is small enough to be closer to those, if you say battery cells, PV modules that I mentioned, that you get a quite high learning rate, and it lends itself quite well for industrial scale automated manufacturing. You can use, in many cases, local supply chains without investing heavily into new supply chains, because most people can make steel structures of like 10 to 15 meters of sizes. But if you want a 200-meter thing, well, yeah, that's a different thing. And the same goes for the kind of ports and infrastructure that you need to roll this out to operate and maintain the devices. We can use existing quite small local ports, and the same thing with vessels, both for the installation and for the operations and maintenance. The whole like modular approach lends itself very well to be scaled up in a very massively parallel way, since the infrastructure is existing. It also means that you have a quite high local content. You really build business in the communities locally where wave farms are being built. And that's quite different compared to some of the other technologies. But so that's on the scalability side, I think, a very strong case for wave energy overall. And what impact can we have? Well, wave energy as an overall opportunity, it's at least 500 gigawatts if we only count the most powerful sites of 25 kilowatt per meter annual resource and upwards. Over time, when the technology matures and becomes even more competitive, we think we can address also medium energy sites, so maybe 1,500 to 1,800 gigawatts. But already at 500, this is an opportunity bigger than all the nuclear capacity or all the hydro capacity of the world today. So it's probably the largest untapped source of clean energy out there. But to then come back to the timeline, we are now fighting hard to get a fully bankable technology and have a supply chain ready to start churning out the thousands of units per year type of volume before 2030. So by 2030, between 2030 and 2040 is where we in the sector see that wave energy is really getting deployed into volume, and is also when, if you say, the pain point to work towards the higher percentages towards firmed, clean 24/7 electricity is coming in. And by the 2040, it's going to be a big technology. And between 2040 and 2050, it can play a major role to take us to net zero, I think.
Wow. So when I spend my holidays in Portugal in 2035 or 2040, I might have a good chance of using the electricity from CorPower. I think that's a very promising vision and goal to work for. I'm also curious about the regulatory aspects, because that is the topic that our also regarding ESFORIN's customers or any customer or people in the energy transition face when, for example, batteries need to be approved or need a grid connection whatsoever. So how does it look like with CorPower? I could also imagine that when it's in the open sea, that they're not always national regulations. So how does it look like there?
A lot of the things is similar to offshore wind, and there's already been a lot of consenting methodology now developed for offshore wind. The major difference, I would say, that these distributed wave energy arrays, since they're quite small per unit, has a very small visual impact. So you can install these clusters like 3 to 4 kilometers from the shore, and you don't see them by eye when you're standing on the beach. So usually one challenge with offshore wind farms is that they need to be pushed quite far offshore, because there's always somebody who has an objection from seeing them, whether you have a fancy beach house or whoever, if it's the military interest or whatever it is, pushing it further out. With wave energy, it has a very low profile. So we think that you can install these devices at the best level of competitiveness, being just a few kilometers out, meaning you have short cables, short vessel trips, etc. And we do see generally so far in Scotland, where we have marine license, and in Portugal, where we have marine licenses and devices operating, powering the Portuguese grid, very supportive environment from local communities and stakeholders. People don't seem to get upset about wave energy farms. Personally, I love to see wind turbines in the ocean as well, but not everybody do. But it seems like that more modular approach and really working in the local communities can be quite helpful to get the consenting through in an easier way.
It's the end of the time of the podcast. Thank you very much, Patrik, for this wave-powered interview and technology-driven insights. We very much hope that you, dear listeners, also enjoyed this episode. And if so, we would be delighted if you would subscribe to our ESFORIN Change Makers podcast via the usual podcast channels. So until the next episode, thank you very much, Patrik.
Thanks a lot for having me.